Morning and welcome to the sports interview segment on Frontline for this morning. And on this Friday edition of Frontline, we're bringing you interview from the world of sport. And then today is the International Football Day, and we have a team we are treating this year, which is talking about Together We Are Stronger. Yes, we've been talking about staying strong when it comes to the aspect of sport. And then not only that, under the team we have honoring the unity and strength of the global football community. And her goal this year is to make sure that people unite from all background and to play and watch football. Yes, we've been seeing it around ourselves. We have situations whereby most people, despite no matter how big their TV is at home, no matter the fact that they have light, they still want to go out and watch this ball. They just want to go out and watch football at the viewing center. And we've seen how these have united people of different background, different trades together. And this is also part of what we'll be discussing in this interview segment this morning. Yes, I'm not here alone. We have a sport analyst in our midst, and that is Mr. Kolade Omotosho. You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll be talking, like I mentioned earlier, that this theme for this year is Together We Are Stronger. Yes, what do you understand by the word Together We Are Stronger? Because we've been hearing it here, we need to stay stronger when it comes to the aspect of football, when it comes to the aspect of sports. What do you understand by that word?
Together, literally, simply means being united, having the same focus, having the same vision, having the same goal. And football, as as a case study, is one of the few sports that has so much of players. You talk about so much of participants. Each team has got 11 and another team has got 11. So on the pitch of play at a particular point in time, you have 22. And of course, there are players that, and a squad usually for a tournament, if you are going, maybe you're playing a league, you're planning to participate in a league, the maximum number of players you can have is 25. That talks about numbers. And still, some of them still have the avenue of going to the academy to actually bring in players in case of emergency situation. If you're going for a tournament, maybe the World Cup, the African Nations Cup, maybe your squad is maybe 30. That tells you football is a game of numbers. And I keep saying that I don't think there is any sports that you have as many participants as football. So when you're saying together we're stronger, I think football epitomizes that because the number is there. So when you work together, and sometimes you even see some managers, they will tell you their strategy is we attack in numbers, we defend in numbers. In fact, I think that's one of the philosophies of Johan Cruyff. You see, the Cruyff style is we attack in numbers, we just attack, we want to get the ball. When we get the ball, then we move again in numbers. So they attack in numbers, en masse, they defend in numbers, en masse. So that's, for me, it epitomizes the vision of unity. So when you are united, you can, achieve anything.
Yes, talking about being united to achieve something. Yes, in the present world where we are right now, we realize that it's a war that is divided among itself.
Yeah.
We have nations fighting against each other. But we've been talking about football being a form of uniting people together. How can football come into the situation to unite people together, and which in the aspect of social inclusion and also to break down barriers?
Football has been doing that. We know when it comes to fight against issues that have been on the front burner. We're talking about issues of discrimination, Black Lives Matter, issue of war. You see football trying to, when it comes to advocating for peace, football is at the forefront. When it comes to fighting against racial discrimination, football is at the forefront. We see players, doing lots of things. Some of them, when they score, you see them review, letterings on their inner wears showing support for something. Football is a good ground for advocacy. Let's put it that way. When the issue of when the black man was killed in the U.S. and the issue of Black Lives Matters actually became a subject of serious debate. We saw, players doing that at the beginning of every match, kneeling down, raising one hand, which symbolized that Black Lives Matter thing. And of course, during the Russia invasion of Ukraine, we saw football taking a decisive stance, and Russia was suspended from all footballing activities by FIFA, which showed, and UEFA, which showed that they did not support the fact that Russia decided to be an aggressor over Ukraine. We saw, the England forcing, Russian investors in the Premier League to let go of their investments. They forced Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea, to actually sell, Chelsea. They forced him into that sale because they felt he's Russian, and of course, whatever funds he invested in Chelsea must have been rooted, from Russia. So definitely, you just have to leave. It was a way of football forcing the hand, because they felt that if they tried to victimize and intimidate Abramovich, who is a close ally of Vladimir Putin, maybe that would have helped Putin to soften his stance and maybe put an end to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So you see that sometimes what political discussion cannot solve, sometimes football comes in and tries to solve it. Yes, I know there are still some challenges that football has not been able to totally solve. In the case of there's still racial discrimination, and I keep saying we are all guilty of all of this. So people might argue that no, I don't, but the honest truth is, even a black man racially discriminates against a white man. You see it in some of the words they say, and even a white man does it. So it's not racial discrimination is not only about the whites alone. It cuts across, and even within this country, I'm not going to go into details so that it doesn't sound offensive, but we have some lingua that we use, to depict some things. Yes, it might not, the real meaning, in fact, let me say it, the real meaning, when we hear the word aboki, when you hear the word, you hear some funny words, it doesn't necessarily mean, aboki obviously means a friend, but when somebody from another tribe uses it, it sometimes is used derogatorily. So all of this is a form of discrimination. So it's not about, when a white man discriminates a black man. No, it transcends that. If you throw jibes at somebody's, somebody's nationality, somebody's ethnic group, somebody's ancestry, somebody's origin, you are being discriminatory. And if whatever decision you are making against a person is based on those things, that's discrimination. So football has not been able to totally eradicate that, but in all of that, football is still a very potent tool to act. And we've seen when you go to stadium and they discriminate against a player, we've seen players walk out, we've seen football bodies fine clubs, fine countries. In fact, sometimes they even give stadium ban and say, hey, you can't do this, because they're trying to force down that issue of discrimination and try to stymie. If you cannot even totally stamp it out, at least reduce it to the barest minimum.
Yeah. Now talking about how football has helped in solving certain things when it comes to countries and nations. And now let's go into our local community, whereby we have good players. There's even the players that we see on TV, the one who are at the international level. When we look at them, there are some players that we have in our local community. When you see them, or they see this field at the local community where they go to play ball, they are even more talented than those we see on TV. So how do you think the bigger football community can come into place to bring these people into the limelight, to help them professionally, even if it has to start with their country's league before they get to that international league? How do you think this can come in?
The truth is, how do you know you are more talented than those you are watching on TV? It's a rhetorical question. So let's not deceive ourselves. If you are not playing at the highest level, there is no grounds to. It's just like saying you've not written a particular exam, then you come out there and say you are actually more brilliant than those people that passed that particular exam. If you know you are more brilliant, why did you sit for the exam? There's a reason why there is an exam. An exam is meant to test an ability. There is a reason why there is a big stage. You can't come out and tell me that, your country is better than the country playing in a particular competition. They played qualifiers. Why did they qualify? So any team that you find in that competition that played with you is better than you. Because the reason why you are not there is because you didn't do what they did. So I think that is a conspiracy theory that has got no legs to stand on. So I'm not going to delve into that. But reality is, football is a pension. Well, is a sport that is not pensionable. It has a lifespan. Nobody plays football forever. I mean, it's in stages. Sometimes you play. When you are done playing, you go into management and become a coach or whatever. That's what you can do for life until you die, literally. But when you active football life have a lifespan, and my pastor will say something that the best way to predict the future is to actually invent it yourself. I mean, no, nobody succeeds by accident. You need to be deliberate, and that is one thing they have abroad in developed countries that we are not there yet. I know some people have started it, but over there, football has gone beyond no, you need to be deliberate about it. And we see, just like the same way some people go to school, it's the same way some people go to school to learn football. I mean, academy, yes, they do coursework, they do some subjects and courses, but they also focus on football. They teach them in class what it means to they teach all of these things. So it's very important. So when you have an academy, when okay, this you want, sometimes even the player might not, the child might not even show traces of knowing how to play football. Okay, you want your child to play football, you go enroll the child in the academy. So you see players like Bukayo Saka. These are well-known stars, likes of Bukayo Saka, Ethan Iwaneri, Skelly, Lamine Yamal. Yamal is just 17. Yeah. He must have been in Barca's academy maybe since 6 or 7. He was growing. He was learning things. He was seeing they were exposed. So they were, they put him on a path. And when you wake up, sometimes you don't want to play football. You don't want to go in the particular. But when you are surrounded with that thing, sometimes you just eventually develop interest and say, okay. So football is not ajaba. You now wake up when you are 24 and say, that's not the way it is. Some people have put their children at the age of 5, 6. You now remember. It is not, they keep saying something that your morning is when you wake up. My dear. If you wake up at 30, in football, it's your night too. Because at that time, you are already rounding off your career. So it's not, you don't just wake up. You need to be deliberate about it. Oh, you want your child to go play football, enroll the child in an academy. Let the child grow. Yes, I'm not saying every child that goes to academy succeeds or goes on to become fantastic. No. Sometimes when you get to a certain this child, you will not make it in football at the top level. Find your level. Sometimes, okay, you might not make it at this top club. You make it elsewhere. And the kid started at Arsenal. And when he was, I think, 12, they felt he was too fat. That was the excuse. And they let him go. And Spurs picked him up. And he went on to become that is why anytime he plays against Arsenal, he's fired up. And said, I want to punish you guys, you let me go. But the club felt at that point he was too big. Lionel Messi, when he joined Barcelona, was a midget. He was suffering from growth issues. His contract was signed on a napkin in a restaurant. That was how literally useless he was. Now he's arguably the greatest player ever. Somebody took a risk on him. Somebody just like say, let us just give it a try. And the guy, he jackpot. But at what age? Messi, they didn't discover that at 18, 19. It was at a very young age. If you see Yamal's younger brother, you will know Yamal is very young. His younger brother is maybe 6 or 7. Yamal himself is 17. So you need to be deliberate about it. It is not, and when you keep saying, oh, you've got the talent, the Bible says you cannot light a lamp and put it under the bushel. Sure. If you feel you are talented, go out there. Don't be playing sets. That is not how to know a good footballer. Don't play sets. Go out there. Join an academy. Go for trials. If you have gone past the age of academy, that is why there are trials. I mean, at least there are professional agents that would, organize trials for you. Go for trials. If you impress during trials, they will say the contract might not be eye-catching, it might not be, a very lucrative one, but it's a good place to start. Join a local club, play this. There are levels to this thing. Even in Nigeria, there is the MPFL, which is the highest. There is the NNL, which is the lower rank. There are academies. There are local leagues. Start from somewhere. Somebody will watch you and say, "Oh, this guy is good." Then you make that growth, and before you know what's happening on the standard stage, the football does not start and end in England. It does not start and end in Spain or the top 5 leagues. There are other leagues in the world. Yes, they might not pay as much as those top 5 leagues that we all know. They might not get to watch you on, on big satellites, but they will still stream you somewhere. And if you are so good, somebody will locate you, and before you know what is happening, you will. If you look at Victor Osimhen, he was at Belgium. He started out in Nigeria, went to Belgium. They are like great tournaments. That's why you have under 17, you have under 20, even though we know there are 8 cheats in this 8 great tournament. But if you still distinguish yourself, Kanu Nwankwo started at under 17. If I could remember, that was Japan, 1993 or thereabout. From there, he joined, I don't even think he played under 20. Then he went to Atlanta, under 23. Then, it was even when he was, if I'm right, it was when he was at under 17 that after that Japan that Ajax signed him on. Then after Japan, Atlanta 96, owing to his superlative performances, Inter signed him. Then they discovered he had an ad issue. Then they had to go for the Inter said, no, we don't want ad in any ad problem. The Arsenal picked him up for a bargain. Then of course, from Arsenal he went to West Brom and all of that. So sometimes your career could be straightforward. Sometimes it might not be. You might need to go to a tortuous route, a longer route, but eventually you get to your destination, but you need to be deliberate about it. Football is just like every professional career. In the same way, you will not just sleep and wake up and say you want to become a lawyer. You need to be deliberate, and it starts by picking. Is that deliberate choice that makes you pick your subject, pick the right subjects. You can't say you want to do law and be doing chemistry, biology, physics. You won't do law. No matter how well you study, you will not do it. You can't say you want to do medicine and be doing government, economics, literature, CR. It's not possible. You need to be deliberate with your. If you're a footballer, you be deliberate with your diet. There are some things you can't do. There's some things you can't do. You can't just go to the shop and pick one bottle of drink and because it might contain a banned substance. I was still, having a discussion with somebody and I told the person that, okay, the issue was about banned substance. And I said, how do these guys even know? Because you are human, you might have natural cravings. But funny enough, those times your natural cravings might have a banned substance because I think they have like 140 banned substances and you could find it in any drink. These guys say so much. So personally, some of them even pay people to vet what they eat. Do you know what it means? So that means for the 8 or 10 years you want to play active football, you are vetting what you are eating daily. There are some things you have a routine. You can't. Some of them have to stay in ice baths because they want to avoid injuries. Some of them stay away from beef. Things. Can you do it? I mean, there is a price to pay for success. It's not the success is there, the popularity, the endorsements, the money, the lifestyle, but the price is also there. Are you willing to pay the price? Success doesn't just happen. People prepare, they plan, and of course, they pray for it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Talking about success and also talking about the football academy. Now, how can the football world community also make a social impact into the community, or maybe let's say to the football world at large? Also, in the aspect of trying to help to eradicate poverty, and also in the aspect of discrimination, and also access to education. How can football come into play in these aspects?
The truth is, football clubs actually do a lot of CSR, a whole lot. Football players do a lot of CSR. We have generous ones amongst them that out of the much they earn. I think this is linked to, more of African players. I know N'Golo Kante, he's got African roots. I know he's building a hospital in his country, country of origin now. I know Lionel Messi is doing something, I think building either an academy or an hospital or a school in Cameroon alongside Samuel Eto'o. He doesn't want, the media coverage for it. He just wants to do his thing. I know they do a lot of CSR. I know Osimhen is doing something. This guy that plays for Dortmund, what's his name now? this guy that talks about fufu. I'm trying to remember his name now. Karim Adeyemi. Yeah, Karim Adeyemi has an academy in Ibadan here. So these guys build academy, and that is a way of giving back to the society. I know Rashford, at some point in Man, he was doing charity, giving out food stuff and food stamps and all of that. They give back to the society, and I think that's their own way. Because sometimes when you hear the kind of money these guys earn, I mean, it's huge. So some of them pocket it and they don't do anything, while some, give it back to the society, try to do CSR, and clubs do it too. There are, clubs actually advocate for things. You've seen clubs do different advocacies depending on, their area of interest. They do advocacy, and that's a way of trying to touch their immediate community. I mean, there's a reason why Arsenal wears white every time they want to start the FA Cup competition. They are trying to raise awareness of particular thing. So, in doing advocacy, in doing awareness, they do that, and of course they give back to the society. And don't forget, because the clubs are big brands, big brands, come to them and they want to partner with them, they give them money, they give them sponsorship. And out of all of this, yes, after picking up their own recurrent bills, they have some extras that they can afford to use to impact the world one way or the other. Touch lives, give them scholarships. Even some of these players, they're on scholarships. Like when they are 16, 15, they're on scholarships with the club. Once the club spots a talent and your parents see that you need a basic level of education, okay, don't worry, we'll do the scholarship. When it's done with the scholarship, you can start playing football. So all of that, that's a way of. There was a video I saw. This young boy, a Liverpool fan. I think he has some form of extra abilities, let me put it that way. And they organized, and he was in Liverpool. He met the likes of Salah. He met the likes of he met Van Dijk. He met Anslot, and they put him, I think, the front row in the stadium. And he was shouting. Or they did a film. I mean, that might just be the boy's happiest. And that was because they saw that, oh, this guy is challenged. Let's just make him happy. And you could see the mother grinning with so much happiness. And there was a child that died of cancer. I think it was an Everton fan. The club kept. There is good because they have a register of their fans, so they can track. But that's one thing our club needs to learn here. We just say, oh, I support so and so. Let's have a register. At least encourage people to put out the form, a membership form. Let people just. You might not collect money from them because here we might be unwilling to part with our money. But over there, they just do it for. It looks like the token. They just say, okay, £5, $5, and people are willing to pay. Of course, they have lots of fans. They have millions of fans. By the time they aggregate those money, you know how much it's going to amount to at the end of the day. It's big money, but to start with, it's not something. So people are willing to associate with their club. Oh, you hear people say, I've been a fan of this club for 50 years. Oh, my father was a fan. He brought me to the club. And because he kept putting the club in my face, I had no other choice than to support the club. So I support this club, blah, blah, blah. You see transgenerational support for a particular club. That is what happens abroad. But here, but that is how they build this brand. That's why these clubs can stand that long. That's why they keep saying, oh, this club is so and so and so number of years. In fact, some clubs that don't even have trophies, then you wonder, why you ask yourself, somebody supporting Nottingham Forest. For a while, yes, Nottingham Forest, I think Aston Villa has won the Champions League before. I think Nottingham Forest has won the Champions League too before. But these clubs, Nottingham Forest for a long time was in the Championship, lower ranks. They worked their way back. And they had fans that were following them. They go Champions, they follow them. They come, they follow them. You see the kind of joy, shared joy. You see teams escape relegation and their fans go ballistic with joy. Then you ask yourself that. So I keep saying that. That's why I keep saying that success has layers. For some, it is trophies. For some, it is qualification for something. For some, it is escaping the drop. For some, it is even the fact that we'll go, we'll come back. So that is how to get people. So these guys know how to get fans involved. They know how to arouse their fans and all of that. See when Arsenal beat Real Madrid and they were talking about remontada and all of that. See the way their fans were going. See what they were trying to do to arouse their fans. See, there is a way you engage. I mean, that is sadly here. Another issue we have here is compared to abroad. Here we have made clubs the properties of government. instead of being the property of the community. So this governor comes in, he changes the no. But over there you have clubs that are, in the community. Madrid has 2 clubs. Israel, Atletico. Basque, which is a huge community in Spain, has got 2 clubs. So when you come from Basque, you either get to love Barcelona or love Espanyol. You don't care, you can be a Bilbao boy, you can be a London boy. That is how to be. And once a club knows that, okay, I'm in this community, of course the club has a way of giving back to that community. Even the presence of that club in that community brings life, to that community. Manchester is not so much of, it's not when you're talking about the eyebrow areas in England. Manchester isn't. But the Man U and Manchester City has put that community on the global map because you want to come and watch Manchester United, which is a big brand in football. You get to know about Manchester, you get to know about the opportunities. So when when you're doing well, you attract people around you and they want to come and see. It's when they are now there they now see opportunity. So even the economy of that vicinity, the economy of that community will take a lift because if you are hosting a major tournament, restaurants will feel it because you have a lot of tourists. Restaurants will feel it, transportation system will feel it, hotels will feel it. So and this economy has a way of trickling down to everybody. It's going to touch everybody. No matter what you do, somebody will patronize you. So that is how the presence of big brands, that I feel that sports, I'm using football as a case study here because it's World Football Day anyway. So there are the presence of these clubs in communities as a way of helping the community and of course making them very livable.
Yeah, I'm not talking about helping the community. Now we are talking about honoring unity when it comes to the football community. How has unity itself helped in facing challenges? Both talking about how has it helped our players on the field and also fans themselves when they come to watch football. How has the word unity helped them in these aspects?
You see, when you talk about unity, I will give different scenarios. If you say, yes, they might be opponents, but there are instances that bring them together. Injury to one becomes injury to all. You see players, I could remember when Mark Vivian Four, slumped on the field of play. Everybody roused, it was France-Cameroon, it was the final of the Confederations Cup. Everybody, rallied around him. At that point in time, it wasn't a matter of you play for Spain, it was a case of saving a life. And everybody was around him. Eventually he died, but you could see the support he gathered. And you could see when Ericsson had a heart issue, you could see the kind of well-wishes support he got from all over the world. And when they saw him back at Euros, the last Euros, you could see the support. Everybody clapped regardless of the country we were supporting because, this is a guy that we thought would not be able to play football again. And here he is playing football. So sometimes they just put aside the competitiveness of the game and just want to save a life. Look at Taiwan when he had this injury, he had this surgery, he had to be induced into coma. You could see the well wishes that came from everybody. Nobody cared whether he played for Nottingham Forest, nobody cared whether he was a Nigerian. Everybody supported him and said, this is it. So sometimes and that is it. So that is prioritizing life over over competition. And also the issue of advocating for things, Black Lives Matter comes quickly to mind, and I'm going to use as an example. You see, when advocating for it, raising their hands, because Black Lives Matter is all about the blacks, even from the name Black Lives Matter. So you expect that it should only be about the colored people, but no, when they are doing it, even the whites will raise their hands because they are supporting. So it's not about a black man. It goes beyond that. It's about standing up for your neighbor. It's about standing up for another person. Another person cannot just be intimidated. You are standing up for that person. So that is the idea behind it, and you could see the support. And of course, after the game, regardless of who wins, you see the winner consoling the loser. See managers. That's meant to be the protocol. Of course, you've seen some dissenting, situations here and there where managers, even after the match, they don't shake hands, they walk away. But ideally, regardless of who wins or loses, you need to shake hands, hug each other, and exchange jerseys. That shows that, see, we competed, but we are not enemies. Today I could be we've seen players play against each other, this and that they belong to the same national team or they belong to the same club. So, and they go at each other maybe on national assignment or club assignment. It doesn't make us enemies. At the end of the day, we are friends. I mean, so you need to, it's just like, just take it like it's a job. And thankfully, it's not a military job that you say you need to kill your enemy. You are not a military person. I'm not how do I call it now? I'm not a terrorist, or I'm not a criminal that you are meant to hunt down. We are just eking out a living. We're just enjoying ourselves, and after football we move on. Who says you can play against each other, and when it's time for holidays you can get out and cool off in the same area? So that's basically the idea, and football is all about support. I've given instances of football advocating for social justice, football advocating for world peace, football advocating for unity. I mean football is just like a uniting force, and of course people use it to even propagate things. We have seen when Kaka scores, we see him raise the hand to the heavens, and when you don't get the message, he even raises his shirt and you see Jesus is Lord there. What other message? People say sometimes that simple gesture is even louder than the message 10-20 churches can preach at the same time, because that audience, because maybe 80,000 are in the stadium at that point in time, how many millions are watching at home? And they're saying, oh, for this guy, with all of the money, with all of the influence, with all of the popularity, and he's still, you're still giving all adoration to Jesus. Who is this Jesus? I must know about him. So you get to find out. We've seen Salah score goals, and he put his head on the ground. I mean, does his own worship. You see, when you see all of that, you now say, ah. So they use it to you've seen. In fact, one of the easiest ways to know one that is expecting a child is watch him when he scores. He scores and he puts the ball in his tummy to show that my wife is pregnant. I mean, what other way? You see, sometimes they celebrate and they show signs. Sometimes they celebrate. They try to. When Nottingham Forest, in their last game against that, what did they? When one of they scored the goals and they hoisted the jersey of Taiwo Awoniyi to the world, telling them that they were in support of him. When Gabriel Jesus had that long-term injury, when Asa came out, they wore his jersey, showing solidarity, showing support for him. They have the audience. The platform is a huge one. They have the audience behind them. So it's an avenue to advocate, it's an avenue to push narrative, it's an avenue to, you need to be deliberate with your narrative. So I keep saying, when you are a footballer, and especially if you're on the global stage, you have a huge audience. And sometimes the way you live your life really counts, because there was this thing that Ronaldo did. He's a supporter, or let me say, he had the endorsement of one of these beverage drinks, and they put it on him, and he pushed it away, and he put water. That message, that thing alone, cost that brand millions of dollars, because people just said, hey, if Ronaldo is not taking this thing, something is wrong. He's taking water. The water had no label, but people say it's water, it's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless. And people say he must be telling a message. Of course, not everybody will use that message, but he sent out. I'm very sure if I do that, you say, well, good here. Who in God's name is this one? But the fact that it's Ronaldo. So when you understand that, when Messi went to an African nation, it was the president that came to pick him up himself. The president himself drove him, because of his. The same president that will go everywhere that they'll be doing, he was the one that said, Messi, I'll be your personal driver. That is. And the guy didn't come with bodyguard, he didn't come decked, he just wore a t-shirt and a short and wore sneakers. But that name, that brand. So when you understand the name, the brand you carry, you will be able to influence things. I mean, as a footballer, you are a major, huge influence, if you know how to, because that influence is so huge. If you know how to deploy that influence, you can actually shake and move the world.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we go this morning, how would you describe the spirit of football in one word, and also why?
The spirit of football is competition. The spirit of football is unity. I can't say that too many times, because even from the numbers you discover that it's actually meant to be a united thing, and that is why if you are not united, I don't know how you will be able to achieve. Maybe that's why we have a lot of clubs that have united in their names. Kwara United, Manchester United, a lot of Uniteds around the world, regardless of the country. You shall find a way of putting United inside. And of course, the spirit of football is you want to win, and that's why you have lots of trophies, and you keep having competitions being created, and the essence of competitions is to win. But again, the essence of competition is to participate, because there can only be one winner. So if the essence of competition is to win, I mean, then what's the point in having many competitors? That the essence is to participate primarily, because sometimes the joy is just to participate, because you know that everybody cannot win this thing. It's painful if you don't get to win it, but the joy of participating, at least being in the mood. That's why we only know one team can go to the World Cup. But the fact that it's in layers, success is in layers. The fact that you even made it past the group, the qualifying stage, and got to that stage alone is good. And of course, that participation is rewarded. I mean, the last count, I think once your qualification is secured, you get $1 million. You know what $1 million can do in a country like Nigeria? That's over £1 billion now. I mean, you know what $1 million can do in countries like Malawi, countries like Togo, and even South Africa will enjoy it. So, that is part of what, and for players, they get exposure, the world can see them. So the spirit of football in simple parlance, I'm going to say, spirit of football is competition, unity, and of course, participation.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on this interview segment this
Thank
morning,
you for
Mr.
having me.
Kolede.
Thank
It
you.
has been an exciting moment, and I actually enjoyed every bit of this interview. And let's not forget that we are still celebrating the International Football Day. And this team also makes us realize that the football world is not only concerned about their players and all those and their coaches, but rather they are also concerned about every of their fans and all lovers of football around the world. And let's not forget that football brings about unity, it brings about togetherness, and also it eliminates every form of racism and whatever bad energy might come, and which is very, very important. And also it also shows that this team also made us realize that football is for everyone. It's not only for the younger generation, it's not only for the older generation, and it's not only for the men, because now we have a lot of women in football who loves football, are lovers of football. So it shows that football is for everyone. And as we're in the spirit of celebrating the International Football Day under the theme Together We Are Stronger. And let's extend this togetherness to everyone around us. And on this note, we bring to the end of the interview segment on Frontline for the Friday edition. I am Adebola Adeleke. Do have a lovely weekend.